Welcome to this webcast. This is a webcast for AutoCAD VBA to .NET migration, the easy way using COM interop. This webcast is being recorded and will be made available for download. Please disconnect now if you do not wish to participate in a recorded event. You will be notified by email when the download is available. This is a quick Meet the Presenter slide. My name is Augusto Gonçalves and I work for the DevTech team based in São Paulo, Brazil. The agenda of this webcast will be, first, some basic concepts such as why migrate, the ActiveX API, then the IDE. Second, we'll talk about a Hello World sample and how to create a project step by step and how to add reference, etc. Third, the migration process. We have some 5 steps to complete to migrate our project. Next, we'll pass some special macro for use in user force migration. This macro will help us how to export user forms into VB6 forms, which can later migrate to VB.NET. Finally, we'll talk about some manual changes we need to do to handle events for this drawing and forms. So, why migrate to VB.NET? Well, first, we have a discontinuation of the VBA license program. And honestly, we cannot expect that the VBA will be included in AutoCAD for many future releases. There are some limitations on VBA. For example, in AutoCAD 64 bits, we don't have a 64 bits version of VBA, so we need to run a 32 bits version using a wrapper. Also, there are no 64 bits versions of many ActiveX objects, such as DAO, Data Access Object. And finally, we have great new technologies in .NET, such as True Object Orientations, WinForms, ADO.NET, and AutoCAD.NET, which we can use to improve our project in VB.NET. The ActiveX API. Well, the ActiveX API is what we actually use from VBA. The discontinuation announced by Microsoft do not apply to the API, only to the IDE, so we can be sure that this API will be in AutoCAD for many future releases. And we can use this API from .NET, and using .NET Interop, we can access the same object model available on VBA. So here's just a comparison between VBA and VBA.NET. First, the compiler. We have a built-in compiler for VBA. We just have to type VBA IDE. But for VB.NET, we need to install a separate external tool. For VBA, we can load our project using VBA load or embed the project inside the DWG. But in VB.NET, we need to load an external DLL using netload or using registry keys. To run a VBA project, we need to type VBA run, but for VB.NET, we can type the command directly on the prompt, because in .NET we can define commands. The new IDE for VB.NET is called Visual Studio. This IDE succeeds the VBA IDE. There are many versions, including a free version, the Express Edition. We will use this version in this demonstration, and you can download it freely from Microsoft.com. So the first demonstration, we will create a simple Hello World project using VB.NET and COM interop. The goal here is to understand the type of project, the reference, and the required code to make it run. So let's change to Visual Studio, the Express Edition, and go to File, New Project. we have to select class library and type the project name. Here we will type 0 hello world and then hit OK. Let's wait a while. Okay, the first step is to add reference to comma interrupt namespace. So right click in the project name, go to properties, or simply go directly to add reference. Now we can add reference using the com interrupt tab. Here we have all the ActiveX objects we used to have on VBA, such as AutoCAD type library and AutoCAD Object DBX common type library. But we can select directly from browse. Here we have an option to browse the version we want to use. I have many versions here, but you can download them from objectarx.com, and I have Object 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. It's recommended that you use this version you are trying to target your project. For example, if you plan to run your project inside AutoCAD 2010, then select ArcX 2010. Then go to Include Win32 or Include X64 if you're planning to run your project inside a 32 bits AutoCAD or 64 bits AutoCAD. Here I'm working with 32 bits version. Now we need to select both AutoCAD type library and AutoCAD Object DBX type library. We also need to select the ACMGD and ACDBMGD because in fact our VB.NET project migrated from VBA will run in AutoCAD like a .NET project. So we need these two references to make it work in AutoCAD .NET. Okay. Now it's important for us to make sure that all these references are set as copy local equals false. So we need to right click on the project name, go to properties, and go to references and change those two references from copy local equals true, go to properties and change to false. Okay. Now go back to the class 1. To make our code typing similar to VBA, we need to import two namespaces. So first, let's import the AutoCAD type library using imports Autodesk AutoCAD interop and import the AutoCAD Object DBX type library. Imports Autodesk AutoCAD interop common. Inside VBA, we have a this drawing variable. This variable do not exist in a VB.NET project, so we need to create a property to emulate this variable. So we will use public, can be private as well. We can use read only because we don't want to change this variable value, and property this drawing. It will return a CAD document and finally return. Here's a long typing, so we need to type autodesk.autocad.application services.application.document manager.mdi active document MDI active document, a CAD document. Now we can use like we use in VBA. For example, create a public sub my routine. Here we can use this drawing like we use in VBA, such as this drawing, utility, dot prompt. We need to use parentheses in VB.NET. This is not required in VBA, but in VB.NET is required. And type hello world. Now to make this routine works in VB.NET, we must add a command attribute. To do so, we need to type Autodesk, AutoCAD, runtime, command class, and the type, the routine type, the command name we want to type in the command prompt to run this routine. We can type my routine. It's important to note here that both this name, my routine, and the routine name, the actual routine name, uh, do not need to be the same. So we can have different names here and here. Okay, now our code is ready. Let's compile our project. Go to build, hello world. If we go to output, we have the address of the assembly, the DLL file. So you can just copy this address and go to AutoCAD and type net load and select our assembly. Now you can type my routine and here we have hello world. This is our first sample. Let's go back to the presentation. So to make the migration, we have to follow a few steps. The first step is prepare your code, our code, for migration. This may reduce the required effort to improve the final result. For example, we have some problems on late binding that I will explain further. Second, we need to export our VBA project to VB6. To do so, we have to save each VBA file, such as module, class, and user forms. Next, we need to import each of those files inside the VB6 project. Next, we're using the upgrade wizard of Visual Basic Express to migrate the project. This is the migration itself. And finally, make some corrections, some manual corrections, such as reference and this drawing variable we did before. So to prepare our code for migration, we should use early binding instead of late binding. To do so, we should consider replace all object and variables for the actual object type. For example, if we are using an object for integer and doubles, we should replace it with the actual object type. Finally, consider using CSTR or CDBL for values if applies. So let's go to a demonstration to perform a step-by-step migration for a simple project. In this demonstration, we will not include user forms, which we'll cover later. So let's go back to AutoCAD. I will close this AutoCAD that is running and open a new one. So I will load a very simple VBA project inside AutoCAD. So let's type VBA load. Enable macros. values. Let's take a look at this project. I have a simple thisDrawing class with a myRoutine thisDrawing utility dot prompt myRoutine working. I have a model one that have a sub routine start here. I have a C variable, but note that this variable it's a late binding variable using object. This can make throw some problems we'll see later. And I have a class 1 initialize, terminating, and a method show message. When the module 1 starts, instantiate a class 1 variable and call the method show message, and we will show a message module 1 module working. Inside the class I will show a message class initializing, class terminating, and the show message. Let's check how it works. VBA run. We have two options here. I have my routine and start here. Let's first try the my routine working. Just prints my routine working. Now VBA run. The start here. Let's check it. First class initializing, then our message, then class terminating. Okay. Now, to migrate this project, we need to go to VBA and select each file. Go to File, Export File. I'll save them here. This class, this drawing.class. The module 1 file, export file, module 1.bas, and finally the class 1 export file, class 1. Now I have to go to VB6. Here I have selected ActiveX DLL, then select Open. I will remove this class 1, we don't need it. Yes. Sorry. Remove class 1 and no. Now I will go to Project, Add Module, select Existing, and go to My Document, select the Module 1 from VBA project. Now do the same for class, existing one, class 1, and finally for the thisDrawing variable. Open. Now I have the module 1 and class 1 and thisDrawing. Save this project. Let's save it at the same place. Okay. This is a message of source code control. I'm not using it here, so let's not add to source save. Okay. Now let's go back to Visual Basic Express. Let's close this project. I'll just save it for future reference. Now I can open the VB6 project. Let's go to Open Project. Once I open the VB6 project, Visual Basic Express will open the Upgrade Wizard. Here I have some options. Let's see these options. First, I can select the type of the project. As the VB6 project is an ActiveX DLL, I only have the option to create a DLL as a class library. I don't have any other option here. So let's just click next. The path where I will save the project, this is creating the folder, just click OK, and start the upgrade wizard. This process may take a while depending on the size of your project. Here, as is a very simple project, we will run very fast. So let's take a look at the files. First, we have an upgrade report. This is a file that contains information about the upgrade process. It's important to check this file. If you can find some information we need to manually accept and configure. For example, some warnings from module. We will check these warnings at our project. Let's go back to the project. We have an assembly info, which contains information about the assembly. Usually the Visual Basic Express may throw an exception about this assembly version, not an exception, and compile error. So we may replace this asterisk by some number. Let's just type 0 here. Now let's go back to our projects. In fact, first the class 1. The class 1 is very simple. Note that the class initialize method do not exist on VB.NET, so it was replaced by the new method. So we can note that first, inside the new method, the first step is to call the base class new method. This is calling the system.object method of system object new method, and then calling the class initialized method, which is our own method. Later we have the finalize method, which first call the terminate method of our VBA class and then call the finalize method of the system object class. And we have our show message method here. Just to show how Visual Basic Express Edition works, if we change this variable name, for example, let's change from str for str. Note this small red square here. If you stop the mouse over it and wait a while, you'll see an option, and if you just select these options, we'll change every reference of this variable from str rename to str. See here, this can save us a lot of time changing variables names. For the class initializing and class terminating, we can leave like this or move the contents of this method from here to here. This is not required, but you can do it to improve your class readability. Let's go to the module 1. Here we have some warnings. First, we have an upgrade warning. This is telling us that the upgrade wizard cannot verify that this show message method is guaranteed to work because the upgrade wizard do not know the type of the C variable. If we replace this late binding with an early binding before the migration, we will have this working without this warning. But here, as it has an object, it's showing this warning. Now, remember that in VBA we can run this start here method, but to run it here we need to add the command method attribute. To use the command method attribute, we need to add reference to AutoCAD interrupt namespace. So go to add reference and select our references. Let's select the same we used before. So select ACDBMGD, ACMGD, and AutoCAD interrupt command and interrupt. Okay, this is a message showing that our project using a later version of the .NET assembly that requires a later version of .NET assembly. Let's just click yes and I will show you how to make it work. Okay, to solve that message we saw, we need to go to properties and go to compile and select advanced compile options. Here note that VB Express migrate our VB6 project for .NET 2.0, but AutoCAD uses .NET 3.5. So we need to change it here because our references are using .NET 3.5 version, .NET AutoCAD.NET. So just let's replace. Once we click OK, Visual Basic will close and reopen our project. It's very fast. Okay. Now one more thing we need to do is go back to properties and go to references and change it from true, copy local equals true, to copy local equals false. Let's go back to our module 1 and continue. So we need to add a command method attribute, Autodesk, AutoCAD, runtime, command method. Let's keep the same name, start here. Now we have an important thing to change. Note that the module 1 it's not set as public, neither private. This is a problem because if we leave it blank, the VB.NET compile will use an internal restriction. So this is not, we will not run inside AutoCAD. So we just need to put a public here. It's important that all classes that have commands defined must be public. Now that there is this drawing, here first we can safely remove this prog ID attribute. This is because VB.NET is trying to make our this drawing variable because it cannot define or find this project, so it's trying to define this project, but it's not working. So let's just remove it from here. Note that this is already public, so just leave there. And this drawing renamed as object variable, we don't need it as well. Let's just remove. Now we have a very similar VBA code here, and we need to create a this drawing variable. To use it, remember that we need to import our two namespaces. So imports Autodesk AutoCAD interop and imports autodesk.autocad.interop.common. Now we can create our property. So using public read only property this drawing as a CAD document, which will return in autodesk.autocad.application-services.application.document-manager.mdi active document.acad document. Okay. Now our code, our VBA migrated code to VB.NET is ready to work. Let's just build, and let's copy the address here and go to AutoCAD. Netload. Let's just type the name here. We have two defined commands. First is start here, which shows a message initializing, show our module working, but will not show the class terminating. Why is that? Because in .NET, .NET have a garbage collector mechanism. This mechanism cannot precisely or on deterministic way define when the method, the class will be terminated. So we cannot guarantee that this terminated method we call it in a specific time. So we wait some time and then it was called. This is different from VBA. Now we have another method is my routine. Sorry, we may miss some step here. Let's go back to our VB.NET project. We missed to add the command method attribute. So let's make this change here. Runtime, command method, and my routine. Remember that in VB.NET we must add this command method attribute to it subroutine we want to run as a command. So let's compile again and start AutoCAD. Let's just net load our project and call my routine. Here it is, my routine working. Very nice. This was our first migration project. Let's close it and go back to the presentation. Okay, next we have a converter macro that will help us to export our project and you work with user forms. What this macro does, it creates a VB6 project from a VBA DVB file, and the greatest thing about this macro is that it do not require that we have VB6 installed in our system. It also saves us a lot of time because it converts the user forms into forms, which will allow us to migrate it later to a WinForms application. And as automates steps 3 and 4, which is export to VB6 and export from VBA and import into VB6, save us a lot of manual work and of course a lot of time. So let's go to a demonstration of this macro. I have a very simple VBA project to demonstrate it. So just load it. VBA load. Simple project. Let's take a look at this project. So I have this drawing which creates a variable of user form 1. Set the variable, set the caption of this form, and then show the form. Inside the form I have a label 1 and a close button. So once we click at the button, we hide the user form. It's very simple, just to demonstrate the project, the idea. Okay, let's close it. To use our macro, we need to load the macro. So VBA load the macro. This macro is part of the downloads of. It's part of the pack of this webcast, so you can find both the samples and the macro. So let's run it. I have an option start VB conversion here. Run it. And I have two projects to convert. First I have the macro itself, which we don't want to convert, and an AutoCAD project. This is our simple project to migrate. We have some options here. First, include code in user forms export, if we want to export our user forms or not. Show placeholders for unknown controls. Note that this macro do not work for every ActiveX control. So we have some limitations, but work for most common controls. So please check our documentation to see if the control you want to migrate is supported. And finally, if we want to include Object DBX type library in our VB6 project, this is usually recommended. So let's convert our VB6 project, VBA project to VB6. The first message is telling us that the user form was successfully migrated, and the second message shows that the project exported finished. Let's keep this dialog open and go back to Visual Basic Express Edition. Let's open our VB6 project. Here it is. This macro, this upgrade wizard, we run it already. So let's just keep next and wait it run. It's running. It take a while. Okay, now we have, like before, we have an upgrade report and an assembly info. We can see that in the assembly info we already have a problem here. I told you about before about the X-rays. So let's just put some version number in here. Okay. Now let's check the upgrade support. This is another attempt for of Visual Express Edition upgrade from Express Edition, trying to make our code work. This is not required or or recommended, so let's just remove this file. You don't need it. And let's check our user form. As you can see, we have the label like in VB6 and the close button. Let's check the close. Note that in VB.NET we have the command button one click. This is the event. We have some parameters here, and we also have keyword handles, which will tell the VB.NET runtime to handle click events for button one inside this method. Once we click the button, we will hide the user form. Oh, here is a simple win form. And let's go to this drawing. Again, we have this system interrupt trying to create this drawing variable. We can remove it from here. Now, before we add the command method attribute here, we need to add reference to AutoCAD namespaces, but the macro also helps us doing that. So it can simply close the project and go back to the macro and use the post-process options. We can select where it is the Object ARX SDK, which you can download from objectarx.com, and click on post-process VB Express project. It asks us to find the project, so let's go to our project. Here it is. We have to select the VB project, but to make it work properly, we need to remove this file. This is just a backup file, so let's remove it and select the VB project. It runs very fast, okay, and exit. Let's go back to Visual Basic Express Edition and open our project. Now we have two two important things here. We have reference set and which with copy local equals false, which is the recommended approach, and we have a debug option working. We'll check it in the next step. So let's add our command method attribute, my routine. We also may need to import our namespaces here, but you may note that this is not required because we don't have any, we don't use AutoCAD object types here. So we can import or not, this is not required in this sample. Okay, we can debug this project. First, we can select a line and then mark a breakpoint by clicking at this gray column, and then go to debug, start debugging. It will run AutoCAD in a debug mode. We also need to net load the project, but we have the advantage of run our project line by line. So let's load the project. Just find it here. Here it is. So my routine. Once I type enter, it will go back to Visual Express, running our code line by line, so we can check variables values and run the project. You can use all the debug options, step in to step out, etc. I'll just continue and check how it works. I have my message here in the close button. Okay, very simple. Let's go back to the presentation. Working with events. There are some special requirements. For example, use a this drawing variable instead as a variable instead a property with events keyword, because this keyword cannot be applied to properties. So we need to use a variable, but we need to manage the swap, this changes between documents. This is automatically in VBA, but VB.NET requires a special code, and we have to add a special we have to make a special code to make it start working when our code starts. We'll talk about that. So let's see a demonstration of these special requirements to handle these drawing events. So let's start AutoCAD to run this demonstration to see the VBA project running. VBA load. Let's find it in here. Events, project, VBA IDE. So we have ACAD begin command event. When it shows a message begin command and the command name, and ACAD end command events that show a message end command name. We can see here at the prompt we have end command VBA load, begin command VBA IDE, end command VBA IDE, and so on. If we type a line command, we have a begin command line, and once we finish, we have a end command line. Let's export this VBA project to VB6. To do so, we will use the macro. Let's find it in here. Okay, VBA run. Let's select the macro. and run. Again, we have the macro itself and our project. We can check the address here, project, and convert to VB6. Let's open inside Visual Basic Express, and here you have a VB6 project. Now we will run the upgrade wizard. This is like we did before. There's nothing new here. Again, it may take a while depending on the size of your project. Before make any change, let's just close this project and run the post process of Visual Basic Express projects and select our project. Here we have the VB project. Let's remove this VB project.user. Okay, it's working. Exit. Let's close AutoCAD and open our VB project again. Again, we have the assembly info. We need to change it here. We have the upgrade support, which we can delete, and the this drawing. Here we have this drawing prog ID. We can remove it, and we can also remove these variables. They are not required. Okay. Now we need to create a this drawing variable. Remember, we are trying to work with events, so we cannot work with properties here. So we need to declare. We can use public or private. Let's use private. To use the AutoCAD document, here we need to import our name, the required namespace. So let's import Autodesk AutoCAD interop imports autodesk.autocad.interop.common. So we have a private this drawing as a CAD document. Here we can set an initial value for this property. So let's set this value. To avoid typing a lot of code here, we will import an additional namespace, which is import autodesk.autocad.application services, and we can remove all this typing from here. Here we can simply type application.documentmanager.mdiActiveDocument.acad document. Remember that AutoCAD is an MDI environment, so we can have more than one document. And once the user swap between documents, we need to change the this drawing variable. In VBA, this is done automatically, but in VB.NET we must do it manually. To do so, let's create another variable. We can call it docs as a document manager, document collection equals application.documentManager. Here we can use the event system we are using on VBA and VB6. We can simply select. We need to add with events here. Otherwise, it will not work. Now we have here the this drawing and the docs variable. Let's select the docs and go to document activated event. The event was added in the end. I will just copy it from here to here just to make more readable. And inside this event, I will do very simple code. I will type this drawing equals e.document.active.acad document. This will update the this drawing variable every time AutoCAD changes the active document. Okay. Now let's remove these spaces, they are not required. Remember that in VB.NET we must use the handles keyword to handle events. So we need to type handles this drawing dot begin command. The same for end command handles this drawing dot end command. Okay, the code now is working, it's okay, but we also uh, must be sure that uh, this handle these events will begin when we load this project. In VB.NET, uh, the classes are not this drawing class is not do not start automatically when we load the project. So we need to force the this drawing variable to run once we load the project. To do so, we can we can implement an interface. Implementing this interface will tell AutoCAD to start this object type once we start the project. So we can implement the E extension we need to implement the autodesk.autocad.runtime.e external application interface. Once we hit enter, the Visual Basic Express will implement the two required methods we need to implement in order to implement this interface. I will just type enter here. Note that in the end we have initialize and terminate. In this case, we just want to make sure that this class will run once we load the project. So we do not need to do anything here, just leave it in there. Now let's build our project. Okay, succeeded. And let's start the book. Now let's load our project. Events, VBA. Now we have the same behavior. We have end command for net load. Before we used to have VBA load, end command for VBA load, and we have all other commands. Begin command line, end command line. Okay. Back to the presentation. Let's go to our final demonstration, which is some special requirements and when handling form events. The goal here is to understand how to manually check and correct migrated events. We did that for this drawing variable, but we also need to make some changes for the forms events. So let's start AutoCAD. VBA load. Let's load our project. Enable VBA IDE. We have this drawing, which has a routine method, gem user forms, set the user forms, and show the user form. The user form have a text box and a button. Once we click the button, we call the show text box message passing the text box. The show text box method just simply show the message, and we also have an initialize method which sets the initial value for the text box. Note that after we click on the button, the text box is now is cleaned. Let's try it. VBA run. We have just one method, routine, and once we run, we have the initial value, show the value, and cleans the text box. If we have another message, Okay, let's load the macro. Let's close it. VBA run. We have start VB conversion and run. We have the macro itself and our VBA project. Let's export it. User form 1 was migrated, saved, and the project. Let's leave it here. Let's open this project inside Visual Basic. Open our VB6 project. The upgrade wizard, we did that before. Okay, before doing anything in this project, let's just close it and run the post process on it. Again, we need to delete the vbproj.user and run it at vbproj. Okay, we can close it now and go back to Visual Express and open our vb.net project. Now we need to change the assembly info. We did that before. We need to delete this upgrade support. And we have this drawing and the user form. Let's check the user form. It's very similar. We have the button, which was migrated successfully, but note that we don't have initialize for user form. This is a problem. We need to fix that. We can do it by selecting the user form events and go to the list of events. But there are also another option, which is go back to the design view and click at the user form and go to properties and then select the event icon, which is this light here, and we have the load event. We can simply double click and we have the user form load event. So we can copy the content of this method to here or simply call it from here. You can do both. There's no need to change, or you can do it whatever you want. At our this drawing variable, as we did before, we need to remove this prog ID from here. We can import our namespace, but they are not required because we are not using any AutoCAD object type library here. So we can type Autodesk, AutoCAD, runtime, command method, and routine. Okay, let's build succeeded, and let's start debugging. Let's load our project. Let's just find it here. User forms, bin, here our project, and we can run it by routine command name, and the initial value show a message. Here we go, and another message. The message. Very simple. Let's go back to the presentation. At the reference material, in the end of the reference material, you can find some quick troubleshooting, which are some common problems you can face while migrating your project. The most common issue people used to face is the exception unable to cast COM object. This is because uh, your project was built using a different version of the AutoCAD you are trying to run. For example, if you compile your project using AutoCAD Object ARX 2009 references and you try to run it on AutoCAD 2010, you can see this problem. If, for example, also if you compile your project using Object ARX 64 bits and try to run on a 32 bits machine, you can also see this exception. The second is that requires a later version of .NET assembly. We saw this problem before, and we can simply change it by changing the .NET version target, the target of .NET version, and the project cannot be started directly. This is because Visual Basic Express Edition do not have debug options, so you need to use to manually edit the VB project file or use the post-processing macro. This is also detailed at the document attached to this presentation. Finally, for additional resources, you can find a lot of .NET related information for AutoCAD at the Truth the Interface blog. We have a ACAD.NET Developers Guide, which has .NET code and the equivalent VBA code, so you can find how to write it using VBA code and the comment interop like we did here. And you can also find the .NET, the pure .NET way to do that. So it's a different approach, it's a different object model. We also have a dev TV about the same topic, VBA to VB.NET migration. Finally, you can find more information at our discussion groups. And finally, if you want professional support, you can consider join Autodesk Developer Network at autodesk.com/joinadn. Okay, thank you very much for attending this webcast and hope you have successful migrating your VBA project to VB.NET.